All right, so let's move on to our first guest. You know, it's the middle of the hurricane season, which also means it's the middle of vacation season at the beach. And the battle of keeping the beaches full of sand despite year after year of tropical systems is a tough one. So tonight we're going to go inside that fight and talk beach renourishment. And for that, WOWK Chief Meteorologist Spencer Adkins in Charleston, West Virginia, has basically been researching this topic for years thanks to many beach vacations in North Carolina. And he's with us live tonight on Tracking the Tropics. Spencer, you're just back from the North Carolina coast, and I'm not going to ask you to share your family vacation pictures from that trip. You did learn a lot about what it takes to keep the sand under our toes on the beach when we go on vacation. Tell us about it.
Absolutely, and hi, Wes, from the banks of the Kanawha River in Charleston, West Virginia, where that's our coast. And we actually have a town that is spelled hurricane 20 minutes from here, but it's pronounced hurricane in West Virginia. We don't have any record of any hurricanes, though, in Hurricane, West Virginia. What we do, of course, have records of our modern-day satellite radar and, of course, firsthand knowledge and video of watching what happened to Florence back in 2018. This is Carteret County, and this is this little sandbar here. It's a little bit bigger than little. It's a 20-mile sandbar plus, and that's known as the Bogue Banks. And that really got hit hard by Florence with the wind and the erosion. And then to go there again and see it firsthand the next season, of course, was pretty remarkable. But also remarkable were the efforts to put the sand back on the beach for the environment and the economy. Let me take you there to see what they're doing. The power of wind and waves and water was never more evident than right here along the North Carolina seacoast on these beaches during Hurricane Florence in 2018. Millions of cubic yards of sand just eroded, washed right back out to the ocean, which damaged, of course, not only the environment, but also the economy, which is why there is such a big effort to replenish, restore, and renourish these beaches.
So, you know, Florence was our storm of record, and if you look at just about any metrics possible.
Greg Rudy Rudolph's job with the Carteret County Shore Protection Office is to help rebuild the beaches and the dunes.
It was easily the most volume of sand that's been removed from the island. We lost about 3 million cubic yards of sand across maybe 20 miles of the island.
To put that in perspective, that's 250,000 dump trucks of sand that hold 12 cubic yards. Hauling sand in? Not an option. So the county hired a crew that specializes in beach renourishment, using some of the sand that was lost and some from an underwater stockpile the county uses. That gets taken out from dredging the harbor in nearby Morehead City. The sand is pumped from barges onto the beach through a series of pipes, and then they contour it with bulldozers. It's quite a scene, and it's been done during the cold season when tourists are not around.
For the beaches, it pretty much wiped out the dunes that you could kind of see up behind me here. So our job was to pump up the volume of sand that we lost during Florence, and in that process kind of reconfigure brand new dune. To fortify the dune, we like to plant it.
They plant the dune mainly with sea oats, millions of them.
And then you'll see a brand new shoot pop out in the middle in a day or two. And then about a year and a half, they'll actually shoot up the actual sea oat that, you know, people I'm associated with.
1 year later, this is what those plantings will look like. These were obviously planted 1 year ago, and you can see it's already starting to collect sand and prevent erosion. This is the natural dune line right here. They'd like to see all 20 miles come back to this kind of a look and protection.
Look, I mean, that root was way down here. I mean, that was a plant that kept on growing up, and up. So that's exactly what we're doing here. You know, the sand's obviously moving up and down the profile every year, and it doesn't move a lot, if you will, unless we get a Florence. So, you know, we can monitor that and kind of set up our targets of how much volume in the system is good, you know, versus bad.
So the moving of the sand and the planting, that's reaching conclusion. Now it's a matter of time and nature cooperating to keep building back what nature also took away.
Fascinating stuff, Spencer. I got a lot I want to talk to you about. That's a lot of engineering involved, but it's not like when we built a sandcastle when we were kids. It's a lot more complicated than that. And I want to talk about how that science works, and then how on earth do you stockpile sand underwater? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, exactly. Well, again, let's get oriented. So here you are in Raleigh, and we'll go down to Carteret County, and let's remember, this is just one county, okay? North Carolina has an expansive seacoast, but they have a shore protection office, and Greg tells me, you know, they really got into this about 20 years ago, and they kind of looked at some things that the Dutch are doing everywhere along the beach line here. And what they're really kind of preoccupied with here and focused on would be the Bogue Banks, because again, when you get to Cape Lookout and looking out to the north and to the east, it's a little more wild. So this is where you have the houses and the condos, things like that. They really want to stabilize that. It is a fairly stable beach to begin with, but they have measuring points all along, and they know exactly the volume of sand that's out there. They lost 3 million cubic yards. They have a stockpile over here out of Morehead City, about 3 miles offshore, where they have been digging and digging and keeping Morehead City Harbor open and to about 45 feet depth. They take that sand, it literally has to be inspected. They take it out and they put it out underwater, and even though there's a current, it stays there. It's like a big sandbar. They're stockpiling 20 million cubic yards, so they haven't even used a full fourth of what they have piled up out there, and it has taken now 2 phases. Phase 3 will come back this next winter, and they're actually going to end up with a total of 5 million cubic yards of fresh sand that they put back out there. They're going to stabilize it and make sure that it's all good, and by planting those sea oats, and then nature takes care of that. And I thought it was kind of interesting too, Wes, that they said that you can actually have a year, if you don't have any storms and you have some nice onshore flow of the wind, just the natural transport of sand could put as much as 400,000 cubic yards of sand back on the beach just without even their help. But you can also have just a normal year where you lose that much too, which would end up being 33,333 dump trucks. And if you think how long that would take, it takes quite some time. So they're really, really impressive with their barges and their pipelines, and the slurry that they pump up on the beach. They contour it and then they plant it with the sea oats. It's an amazing feat of engineering that they're getting done in rapid fashion, just in one county alone, to the tune of about $87 million between federal, state, and county funds.
Wow, that's an amazing science I don't think I've ever dived into. Tell us about North Carolina. How does North Carolina's coast, that little small section, compare to other states? And I'm also curious about the underwater marine life. How do they take care of the animals under the water?
Yeah, and that's all a big concern because, again, you're dealing with federal regulation. So let's look at that again. You're looking at something like a 21-mile stretch of beach. So if you compare that shoreline, straight line from end to end, it would be about 25 miles of the actual area that they take care of. Let's go up to New Hampshire. Now, I know it's not a sandy beach. They have 13 miles of coastline that they take care of. Let's see, other states, Delaware, 28 miles, and Maryland, 31 miles. So you can see just one county alone really has a lot to deal with, and they're so far ahead of the curve, basically engineering-wise, and seeing that vision, and they really try to protect that resource. And then as far as looking at nature, like you talked about, there's a lot of those, say, loggerhead turtles, like this one right here, and what they do is they take what they call a trawl, and they go out ahead of the barges and out ahead of the pipes so that they're not accidentally sucking up these beautiful creatures. And let's see, if I remember right, they had something like 6 loggerheads that they were able to relocate. And again, they're trying to avoid anything in terms of further endangering the species, because that actually also is a nice habitat. And if you've ever vacationed there or seen the stories or been there, as soon as there are eggs, there's a whole squad of volunteers. They know exactly what they're doing. They'll come out and take care of that and see that once they hatch, that those turtles make it back safely into the ocean. So it's quite a balance between the vacationers, the people who are homeowners, nature, a tax base. All of this comes into play, and it turns out to be a real great result so far, and especially over the past 20 years along the Bogue Banks and then Carteret County in North Carolina.
Wow, something that I bet all of us take for granted. We just show up at the beach and we're happy there's sand and we're not at work. Great bit of science. Thanks for sharing it with us, Spencer. That's Spencer Atkins up in West Virginia tonight. Check him out next time you're in the Huntington, West Virginia area.